Hello and welcome, beloved viewer, to the Juicy Life Leader Conference, where we leaders from around the world come together to catalyze a deep conversation about the evolution of leadership. And for me, being a leader always has to do with humans, with our relationships with other people. And this is why I'm so happy and excited to introduce you today to our guest here, Maya Huchan, the author of this incredible, right now coming out new book, Saving Face. This book is so brilliant. I just say it already up front, you must get your hands on this book. And after this interview, you will know why. Maya, thank you so much for joining us here with this incredible global intercultural philosophy, I believe you have really developed around the concept of faith. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sylvia. What an honor to be here. Thank you.
So let me give the beloved viewer just a few nuggets of your incredible biography. So born in Taiwan, you are now living here close to where I live in the United States in Southern California. And you are recognized globally as, I need to read that because you have so many roles: management consultant, executive coach, you are a speaker. I saw you on leadership platform speaking. You are an author of this wonderful book, and you are the founder and the president of the Global Leadership Associates. And you were an anchor for the China Broadcasting Corporation in Taiwan. You need to interview me. You are the experienced anchor. And you are a former CEO of a nonprofit organization in California, and the list goes on and on and on and on. And I know you are married and you are a mother of 3, right?
Yes, I have triplets.
Triplets, so not 3 children after each other, triplets. Yes. And you travel the world. You are a global citizen. Wow. So tell me, from this background of amazing leadership biography, what sparked your interest? What's your journey? What's the story behind coming up with this book, with the concept of faith? What's the story behind it?
You know, I have been working with leaders around the world for over 20 years. And I was their coach, and I was their teacher, and I was working, talking, understanding, learning so much about their struggles, their challenges as leaders. And very often that the leaders will share with me that there's the burnout, there is disengagement with their team members, and there's conflict going on. And I have shared with them this concept that resonates with leaders at all levels across cultures and industries. And it is so essential to their leadership, but it's also counterintuitive sometimes. And it is the concept of faith, okay? And so when the leaders experience all of those challenges with interpersonal relationships, and when they go look deeper, when they really reflect on it, and then particularly when the phrase is used, it's not about the money. The real issue is often about faith. And so, you know, this is a universal concept. So the faith is the universal concept beyond its origin of Asia. Now, this concept of faith permeates all levels of business and social interactions. And it really speaks to the common human needs and desire to be accepted and respected. So I started to reflect on all the common thread of all those challenges. And I have decided that I wanted to write a book about this topic. And so that's 7 years later.
And I want to quote something you write here in your preface. You write here so beautifully: more than ever, leaders must win the trust and respect of their counterparts. Building authentic and lasting human relations may be the most important calling for leaders in this century. So we are here in the conference about evolution of leadership. So why is this concept of face exactly, especially now, so crucial?
Yes, I think this is becoming so important in this day and age for several reasons. That we are working with more and more diverse teams. As leaders, that we work with people across generational, cultural, and gender differences, and we work across time zones, we work across geography. So people are so diverse, our workforce is diverse, and also our business partners, our clients, our customers, it's all diverse. So as leaders started to work, when we work with people who are very diverse, with diverse backgrounds, that we cannot operate on autopilot, okay? And it's particularly important for leaders to be mindful about how do I show up, and who is my audience, and what is important for them. So to have that ability to work across human differences is so important. And then face is at its core. Now, the second reason is that nowadays, as you know, that we're all now working from home during this pandemic. Now leaders are working, even though it could be sitting next to you, or you have people sitting thousands of miles away, that we're working with people using technologies to communicate. And there's a lot of missing links there because lack of face-to-face communication. So it's important for leaders to also consider this, utilizing the concept of face to connect with people, particularly with remote virtual teams. And thirdly is that social media, that we're constantly are exposed to social media. And where it's so easy to offend or insult somebody without the normal check and balance of having to actually confront them face to face with your slight. So, it's something that I think sometimes we're not even aware that we can cause somebody to lose face unintentionally. And so of all of those reasons, that being able to be aware and practice the concept of face can help us connect better, can help us break down barriers, and build authentic relationships for the long term.
I remember somewhere in the book, I read this in a side sentence. You said it's so much easier on, let's say, Facebook to unfriend someone than leaving the room when you were both having face-to-face a tough conversation. Yes. So that is, I mean, it was just a tiny detail, but it made a big light bulb going up in my brain, realizing how different, sadly, on social media sometimes these trolling conversations go, where I'm shocked about the lack of respect, which I believe if people were in the same room, they would never say what they just dropped into a comment, because it's so easy to just drop it and then forget about it and move on, right?
Yes, absolutely. So, and Sylvia, let me give you a quick example of that. Let's just say Linda, that's not the real name, but Linda works for a software company. Okay, and she is a team leader. She has been using Slack. This is a platform that's very popular to communicate with her team. And before the pandemic, she used it even with people sitting right next to her. She's constantly sending information, sharing information, and to everybody on her team. Now, she would reach out, and so at some point that she started to use it also to provide feedback to her team members.
Ooh, on Slack.
Yeah, Slack, yes. And then she pride herself of being efficient and, and also being transparent. So she would provide feedback to team member. And what happened was that, as you can imagine, the person that received the feedback obviously lost face and feel humiliated, embarrassed, and the impact is not only on that one person. The rest of the team all read that message, and everybody not only feel bad for that one person, but then immediately start thinking about, I don't want to be that person next time. So then,
she caused fear, right? She caused fear in the others. I don't want to get a public feedback on Slack.
Yes. And then so you're exactly right. She actually unintentionally created a fear-based culture of her team. So then she started to notice that people are not speaking up. They're not sharing ideas. They're no longer offering, they're no longer share their thoughts, and they stop taking risks, and they become very quiet and disengaged.
Wow.
And people don't trust each other because it is so public when that humiliation is out there. So then she created this fear-based culture. The team performance tanked. So when she contacted me as her coach, we looked at some of the feedback and realized that that was the core cause, the root cause of this mistrust, as well as the performance issue that with her team. So then it took her 6 months and working diligently to change that atmosphere, to rebuild the trust, take the feedback offline, and to provide positive recognition to her team members online, and then do this day in, day out to really rebuild that trust. And it was hard work, but guess what? This lesson, it really transformed the way she leads, and she became much more mindful and intentional about her actions and about her words. And then it finally, this thing turned around, and she was able to save face for the team. And so going back to why is this so important in this day and age for leaders to be mindful about the concept of face, is that it could happen even when you don't know it.
I want to underline why I love this story, because first of all, it gives us hope. When we screw up, we can fix it. So we can turn it around, especially when we read your book and understand how to do it, which, because you give a lot of practical tips. And it's also a warning about the impact when we make a mistake regarding face, because she did one feedback, but it had a rippling effect into her whole team. It changed the culture she was working in, and she needed around 6 months to turn it around, thanks to you, her coach. Which reminds me of your beautiful metaphor you used, this saying, it's easier to spill water, right? And get it back together. So I think this is a perfect example for that. And I also think it leads beautifully into your term, which I have not heard in the connection with face. We all have heard about different social currencies, and we heard about the metaphor of the emotional bank account in relationships. But please explain to us, what do you mean when face becomes a new social currency? What do you mean by that?
So great question. And then perhaps it will be helpful. Let me first define face. Okay. Yes. So what do I mean by face? Of course, it's not just the physical face, but face represents one's self-esteem, self-worth, identity, reputation, status, your pride, and dignity. All of that. That's a mouthful, right? Self-esteem, self-worth, identity, reputation, status, pride, and dignity. So when we use this term face, it's really represent you as a person inside and out, right? And it is not only represent how you see yourself, it also reflect how others perceive you. So it's your whole person, right? And so when we think about face, that the metaphor about face is the new social currency in today's world. What I mean by that is that the more face you have, the easier and faster you can get things done. And imagine that when you build a relationship with someone, and then you wanted to build a supply of face with someone by continuously making deposit into this bank account we call face. Now we build trust, we express appreciation and gratitude, we compliment or recognize people's contributions, right? And we empathize with people, and then we put ourselves in their shoes to understand their challenges and their perspectives. And we give people their voice, equal time, and equal weight. So there's so many different ways that we can do to build this social currency in the bank account of face. Now, so when we need to make a withdrawal at some point, for example, if you need to provide a critical feedback, or you may have said something that accidentally perhaps offend that person, but because you have built up this trust, this bank account, so then people will give you benefit of the doubt, and this relationship can still be saved if there are enough deposits to cover this withdrawal.
Which reminds me on your beautiful subtitle of your book, where you say how to preserve dignity and build trust. Because when I have a relationship in my team with everyone where there is a lot of trust in our relationship bank accounts, one screw up, one mistake, one tough feedback doesn't hurt as deeply as if there is no trust. Oh my gosh, then the same thing can have like a bomb explosion effect. But if there is a thick cushion of trust, a high amount of currency of trust in that bank account, some people will smirk when the little bomb explodes, but it will not destroy everything we have accomplished. So I love the relationship between saving face and building trust, because trust is a currency right now discussed in a lot of circles. So can you differentiate a bit more about, from starting with your definition of face, what does it mean to honor face, to lose face, and to save face? Because I think we need to have these three clear, because that has to do with ourselves and what happens on the other side of our relationship with our communication.
Absolutely. So the three key concepts here, the first one is honoring face. Okay, so honoring face is literally thinking about making that deposit of face. And so honoring face are actions that we take to show respect, admiration, and grant dignity to others. So as I mentioned, that there are many ways that we can honor face, and it's not a rocket science, and they can be very simple act to really demonstrate that to be able to honor face. For example, ask people for input, give credit where credit is due. You express appreciation and gratitude. You acknowledge people's input. All of that, and then simply sometimes just to be there and listen to them. Okay, and those are different ways that you can do to honor face, and you're sending a message that I see you, I hear you, and you matter. Okay, and one of my favorite quote from Maya Angelou was that people will forget what you said.
Yes. People
will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Right? And I think this is something that is all about honoring face, to honor the other person, and by taking those simple steps to really demonstrate respect for the other person and to lift them up, to build confidence in them, and really that's a way of making that deposit. Now, so the second concept is about losing face. And this is something we certainly wanted to avoid. And you mentioned, Sylvia, earlier about this metaphor about, this is actually a 1,000-year-old proverb from China. And it's something that I grew up hearing my parents, my teachers telling me. And it goes like this: spilled water is hard to regain. Spilled water is hard to regain. Now just imagine that if you accidentally knock over a glass of water, and the water spilled all over the floor, how hard is it to get it all back into the glass?
It's impossible.
It's impossible. It's very hard, right? Yeah. And even if you manage to get some back into the glass, do you still want to drink it? No, I don't think so, right? Now, so what that means, this proverb is the meaning behind it is that if you have said or done something to cause somebody to lose face or damage or create a negative feeling, it's what you said, what you did is done. And sometimes the damage is done, it's very difficult to repair. So that's why we need to be mindful about how we show up and what we say, what we do, because that spilled water is hard to regain. Even you get it back, it's not the same, right? So when we think about losing face, when people lose face, it can provoke shame, fear, vulnerability, guilt, and a wide range of very negative emotions. And then when people feel those negative emotions, it can directly impact how they show up. They can impact their performance. They can impact how much they share their ideas, how much they speak up, and even how long they stay with the company. Okay? And then here's the thing, that sometimes we can cause somebody to lose face unintentionally. And then we've all done it. We actually said something and then it came out wrong, or we didn't even realize that this can make somebody feel bad or actually embarrass someone. And when it's out, it's too late. But here, the danger is that we're running on autopilot. We're running on autopilot that we don't think. And we don't always realize that this is something that, well, think about, is this the right time, right place to say this, right? Is this the right way to say this? And then so, for example, when we can be giving somebody negative feedback in public, like the Slack example, and we can be forgetting to acknowledge somebody's status or position, or we may have told insensitive jokes. We made a sarcastic comments. We interrupt somebody when they're speaking. We did not invite them to share their ideas. And there's so much more that could happen. Just because we're running on this autopilot, that we need to get off that autopilot, right?
Can I add a mistake I made a few years ago?
Yes.
When I moved from Germany to Michigan with my family in 2006, I was not culturally prepared. I had no intercultural training, nothing. It was a very fast decision, and it was because of a job offer my husband got, and I had just given birth to my second son. So I really started my life in Michigan knowing nothing about the Michigan and American culture, only what I have seen in Germany on TV. So I was on autopilot, on my German autopilot, talking English the same way I was talking in Germany, because this was my autopilot. I thought this is normal. Everyone talks like this. I just changed the language. Oh my gosh. I started to work for a nonprofit on the board level, and one of the board members became a closer friend, and she told me a few months in the work there with them, she told me behind the scenes that the other board members were scared of me. And I was so shocked. I was like, why? What? I'm such a nice, sweet person. I love them. And she said, well, Sylvia, your way of German straight talk is really confrontational. You are scary. And for me, it was so, I was under shock and embarrassed because I had no idea, no clue. It was not my intention. I seriously loved them. I just spoke the same way we in Germany would speak together in a board, right? It was a complete intercultural blind spot I had. I was not prepared.
Yes. And that's a great example. And we're not aware that this can be perceived in a negative way. And we're running our autopilot because our behaviors is completely normal and in fact appreciated in our own cultural context, right? And may I share a funny story with you and your audience? Here, so I have a client that he's Singaporean and working for American company for many years. Obviously, he is very familiar with working globally and with working with Western culture, but he lives in Singapore and his boss is American. So one time I was on the phone with him and then he immediately told me, Maya, I am very upset right today. I'm just humiliated. Today is not a good day. I said, what happened? He said, well, I just got off the phone with my boss and my boss called me stupid. And, Sylvia, I know his boss quite well. And I was surprised to hear that because from what I my understanding was that he's actually a very genuine, professional and polite person. So I was surprised that he would actually say that. So I asked my client, I said, well, tell me more. Tell me exactly what happened. What did he say? And then so he said, we were talking about this new project we're working on. And then we were talking about different scenarios and ideas. And I offered something, my thought. And then my boss said, oh yeah, it's a no-brainer. And so, well, immediately I knew what was the problem, right? And then I said, okay, let me explain to you what no-brainer means in American culture. And it means it's obvious, and that has nothing to do with stupid. So after I explained to him, because he literally explained no-brainer meaning no brain. So then he thought that his boss was insulting him. So, in this case, as soon as he heard this, we had a big laugh. And then he said, I'm so glad you told me about it. I don't feel bad anymore. Was saying, thank goodness that now I know the situation. But you know what? He would never go, if I hadn't had a chance to talk to him, he wouldn't have gone back to his boss. He would not ask his boss, why did you call me stupid? Right? And then he would feel bad for months or even years because that was such an insult for him. He felt humiliated. Okay. And then here's the thing, his boss probably had no clue what he had done to cause this, to damage the relationship that he had with this employee. So that's autopilot, and we can cause somebody to lose face unintentionally, and then because we're running on autopilot. So we need to get off that autopilot and then just be mindful and learn and then understand what is my impact, who is my audience, and what do I need to do to make sure that I don't accidentally cause somebody to lose face and cause unnecessary damage. Now, so the third concept is actually most important. It's about saving face, right? So saving face is the authentic and intentional act of turning around a situation to preserve dignity for all parties involved for a positive outcome, okay? So now, there are many different ways that we can save face in an authentic way. Actually, Sylvia, I have a gift for your listener. Okay. I have a book, I wrote an article. It's called 13 Ways to Save Face in an Authentic Way. Okay. And this is something that if you go to my website and just log in, you'll be able to type in your email, you'll be able to download this for free. So there are 13 ways to save face in an authentic way. And it outlines there are different ways that you can help people save face in a way that's effective and also is simple.
Wonderful. Perfect. Because everything you just said in the last 5 minutes reminds me of something I think we all tend to forget, because when it's about business and we are working, we think it's about the products or the systems or the machines or the topic, the expertise. We forget that it is foremost about people. And we also forget that because everyone has this kind of persona, this professional mask, and everyone is so well put together, and women have their makeup and men have their armor. I think we forget what sensitive souls we all are, and that sometimes a wrong facial expression, sometimes one sentence, one unintentional, well-meant feedback gone wrong can really hurt someone else. And I
Absolutely.
think we don't think this way in the professional environment because we live in the illusion it's about the topic, the machine, the service, whatever. No, it's not. We are dealing here with human souls, with human hearts, and we are all way more sensitive than the strongest seeming personality, man or woman, likes to admit, I think, in everyday life.
Yes, and you're absolutely right, Sylvia. And that's why that I often advise the leaders about being a whole brain leader. Bring your whole brain to work when it comes to leadership, right? Because you're absolutely right. There are many times that we are so focusing on, the left brain, is the analytical skills, the data, the facts, and then the results, and the methodology, the structure, the processes, that we're so focusing on our left brain, because, and that's the way we were trained in the education system to develop those hard skills, right? But then leaders sometimes don't always remember to utilize their right brain. It's the more artistic, more creative, and also it's a more empathetic kind of part of the brain, right? And it's all about building that human connection. And particularly in crisis or when we're in conflict. And it's so crucial for leaders to utilize our right brain to connect with people and to utilize the concept of faith to understand what's important to them, to honor them, and then to help them preserve their dignity. And so we need to bring our whole brain to work, not just half of the brain.
Love it, love it, love it. This is why I designed here the Juicy Life Leader Conference with the 4 tracks. And in the 4th one, which is spirituality, purpose, and creativity, I have experts who will help us to use creativity and art to access the whole brain, to activate the right brain part, the right hemisphere, so that we can infuse everything we do from a whole brain perspective as leaders, and not just from the one which is culturally in our current zeitgeist, culture, and society more trained, which is the left one. I love it, love it, love it. Going to the next big term in your book, you talk about cultural agility. That's big for you and your philosophy. Please explain what you mean with that.
Absolutely. So, cultural agility is the ability to look at a situation from a business and cultural perspective, okay? And then to be able to manage the situation to achieve business results in a way that works effectively within the cultural context. Okay, so what I have discovered is that when we're working with, people from diverse backgrounds, for example, cross-culturals, and a lot of times that we tend to make certain assumptions that we're not even aware of, right? And sometimes we will interpret certain actions in a way that fits in our own cultural context, but then not realize that, wait a minute, maybe that they're coming from a different place, okay? And so, like the example we used earlier about no-brainer, it is a very common situation that people are using. And then, some of the common slangs or idioms that we're using, like, oh, he's tied up right now, it's a piece of cake, or it's a catch-22 situation. When we use, again, driving on an autopilot, and we don't realize that this can be interpreted in the wrong way. And then so it's so important for leaders to know your audience. When you're working with diverse teams, that think about who are we speaking to? And then how they might process what we're communicating, okay? And how would this message be interpreted by them? And so I have a model called AAA model in the book. And this model is to help you develop cultural intelligence and cultural agility. Okay, so the AAA model it represents 3 A's. Okay, and the first A is aware. So it's to be aware of your own assumptions, your own beliefs, and also your bias. That's right. Yeah, that's the page.
I just want to show, you have so beautiful, I love your diagrams you sometimes have. I'm such a visual reader. I so love this. So please, I just hold this up while you talk.
Yes, thank you. Yes, so now, so the first A is aware. So it's more, sort of focusing on inner focus. You reflect on your own assumptions and beliefs and your own bias. Yes, and it is so important though to have that reflection, and nobody is bias free, right? So, but it's important to recognize that that's my belief, okay? And so that's the first step, is first A. And the second A is acquire, right? Acquire is outer focus. So ask questions, seek to understand the other person's frame of reference, and seek to understand where they're coming from. What is their perspective? right? And why do they do or say certain things? Where are they coming from? So acquire is to seek to understand and then to acquire those perspectives from the other person's perspective. Now the third A is adopt. So adopt has this arrow pointing inside and out, right? So then once you have self-awareness and once you acquire the information from the other person, you can adopt your behaviors, your mindset, and you can take thoughtful actions to produce positive outcomes for everybody involved. Okay, and
love it. I love because it's so, I can remember that. I mean, AAA, especially United States, everyone knows AAA, but now I have a new meaning for AAA. And being so visual, I mean, the errors and how the black and white becomes the stripes, my brain, this is how I learn. So yeah, bingo. Just these 2 pages are worth buying the book and reading it. Seriously, it's just brilliant. It's absolutely.
Yes. Well, thank you. And let me give you a quick example. A client of mine told me this interesting the story that happened to him. This is an American manager that who wrote an email to his employee in another country that speaking a different language. So this email he wrote to this employee was that I'd like you to finish this task by certain date. Please confirm. Right? Very straightforward. And this employee wrote back next day with just 2 words on that email. No way. Okay. So, well, this American manager obviously was not pleased when he saw this email. And he was actually quite upset. So then he thought, well, gosh, that is very rude. I'm going to show him who's the boss, right? So then he started writing this very angry email back. But then after he wrote the email, he stopped himself and he read it again. He said, well, this email is very angry. And then he started thinking about this employee. Well, he has been working with me on my team for about a year. He's very diligent. He's always hardworking. In fact, he's always very polite. I wonder why he would reply with no way. That was just out of character. So he said, you know what? Instead of writing this angry email back at him, let me just pick up the phone and talk to him and see what's really going on, right?
Oh yes, to talk with each other on the phone, right?
Exactly. So then he picked up the phone and called this employee. So he asked his employee, hey, I want to talk to you about this email that I sent you. And then you reply, no way, what's going on? And this employee was very apologetic. And he said, well, let me explain that the deadline that you gave me for this project, I have 2 other projects that was due the same week. And then he went on to explain the other 2 projects and then very apologetic and say, I just don't think I can accomplish all 3 in the same week. So that's why, I can't do it. And the boss said, oh, okay, I understand now, but why didn't you explain this in the email? And then he said, well, English is not my first language. It would take me an hour to explain this whole situation if I try to write the email to explain this. And he said, okay, well, so he said, that's why I put down no way, because you know what? I'm learning English. And I know that Americans like to be direct and straight. And I know Americans say no way, it means no, right? So I want to be efficient. In American TVs and movies, they use this all the time. He did not realize that this is very offensive and non-professional to use that. So this American manager started to completely understand where he was coming from. And then he explained to him that this is not a good way to respond. And then they actually work out a different timeline. So the AAA model was actually perfect to kind of think about this, how he handled the situation. Number one is that he's very much self-aware that he understands, okay, well, this, I'm angry right now. I'm writing this email and it can come across very upset. And let me figure out what's going on, right? And he knows that he has that self-awareness. And then he listened to the employee explain what's going on and he asked questions. Oh, it makes sense why he say no way, right? And then he adapt, meaning that then let's work it out. So He's no longer upset. He understands where the other person is coming from, and then he takes thoughtful actions to produce positive outcome. So those are simple steps. It really is simply remind us to get off the autopilot, put the pause button on, and then say, let me understand what's going on before I jump into conclusion or take actions.
And that was such a perfect, like a coaching process, a coaching model you delivered here to us in a few minutes. And when leaders operate on that with the AAA model, what they are producing is a culture where psychologically safety is present. So please explain to our viewer, what is psychological safety, and why is that so crucial to have a high performance culture in your corporation, in your business, in your team?
Yes, psychological safety is so crucial for high performing teams. And as you may have heard that Google had done a study globally to study what makes a team high performing and effective. And psychological safety is the #1 factor. So what is psychological safety? Psychological safety is a sense of confidence that the team will not embarrass, reject, or punish somebody for speaking up. And this was clearly defined by Amy Edmondson as a professor at Harvard Business School. Now, so this psychological safety describes a team climate, it being people feel safe and they feel that they can be themselves, and a team that has interpersonal trust and mutual respect. Okay, so now when we think about psychological safety, first let's think about if we don't feel safe, what happens? So when people are afraid, okay, or they tend to either fight or flight, or they freeze. Those are the 3 possible responses, right? And let's think about the most common reaction is actually freeze, meaning that they do nothing. They build up wall, they shut down, they remain silent, they stop contributing or sharing their ideas or speaking up. And none of those reactions are beneficial to the team. Okay? Now, on the other hand, when people are feeling psychologically safe, they tend to be more relaxed, they laugh more, and they become more creative, and they take more risk, and they speak up more, and they share more of their own ideas, and they also feel more empowered to take actions. And when people feel psychologically safe, they focus on different things. They're focusing on collective goals, they focus on solving problems rather than protecting themselves.
Yes.
And that's huge.
Yeah, it's so huge. It's so huge. And what I found most fascinating by this Google team study about performance, that even in teams where the individual team members were officially highly capable on a high competence level, when psychological safety was missing in the team, no high level of competence or intelligence or skill level could compensate for that. So which means that we leaders, when we create a negative culture where faith is lacking, where psychological safety is lacking, we literally destroy the performance capabilities of officially top performers, of highly educated, highly skilled high performance bringer. They can't work together when the psychological safety, the culture is not there. Wow.
Yes.
That's huge and not talked enough about, I think. Because there's sadly still these it's what you and I here talking about is these soft factors. Yeah, we are talking the soft talk in business. For me, the soft factors lead to the hard numbers.
Yes.
Soft factors determine if there is performance or not. This is why your research in this book is so important. This is not soft factors for soft, fluffy, cute, unnecessary things. This determines the performance, and with that, the bottom line of every business, every team, every company.
Yes, and it has an indirect impact in the team performance and also business results. So, and those are the soft skills that's hard to master. Okay, and one of my favorite stories of saving face is actually told by a client of mine.
Okay.
So Jeff, let's call him Jeff. Jeff was facing a big crisis. Okay? He is the financial director of a multinational company. Now, under his watch, a frontline employee had stolen over $100,000 in 8 months period. As the financial director, Jeff had designed and deployed this cash flow system under his watch that actually allowed this employee to commit the fraud undetected. So now it was a high profile case. And, not only discussed in the security meetings, but also spread quickly throughout the whole company. And Jeff felt entirely responsible and personally victimized. And it was an example of losing face big time. He lost his credibility, he lost his reputation, he felt embarrassed. Now soon, the company's COO planned a meeting with Jeff and his team. And you could tell the stress consumed Jeff. He lost weight, he couldn't sleep. He actually even developed this rash all over his face. So for days, he looked like a dead man walking. Okay? So when the day arrived, the team waited nervously in the conference room and the COO walked in. And the COO broke the tension with one sentence. He said, "I don't care about the theft." He said, "Theft is unavoidable whether you run a hot dog stand or you're running a multinational company. The company was insured and we will be made whole." And he continued, he said, "I only want to know that you plan to review the process and fix it. And you seem well on your way from what I can see." Right?
Wow.
Wow. And then so Jeff's demeanor immediately brightened, and the rest of the meeting, Jeff and his team focused on problem solving and move forward. And Jeff returned to his job with renewed energy, and the COO had saved his face. Okay. And then so when you think about it, what did the COO do? How did he do it? Right? He created psychological safety while holding Jeff accountable. He didn't say, "Oh, don't worry about it." He did not. He held him accountable, yet he also created safety for him. And then he was kind and firm. He chose his words very carefully, and he showed humility and emotional intelligence while dealing with this emotionally delicate situation. He helped Jeff overcome shame and embarrassment quickly and refocus his energy on solving the problem and moving forward. He sent a message to Jeff and his team: "I trust you. I have confidence in you to do the right thing."
Wow.
And that's saving face.
Wow, I have goosebumps here right now from you sharing this story, because this is brilliant, because it brings all the different puzzle pieces you have shared here with us together. And I like that you brought in the accountability. And for me, the story is a proof. It's not about faked softness and fluffiness. It is about accountability, but in a context of preserving everyone's dignity and feeling safe. This is beautiful. So there's one chapter in your book, which I believe you should write your own book just about that chapter, because you use the whole concept of saving face regarding women leaders and seeing beyond the glass ceiling. So I apologize to the beloved viewer that we are talking now only 3-4 minutes about it. So maybe you, Maya, and Ivy can make another full training just for women leaders about that, because I'm so passionate about it. I have my own Becker-Hill Women's Empowerment School. So I know from reading your brilliant chapter, there are unique challenges women internationally face when it comes to saving face. So please, in the amount of short time, give us 2-3 nuggets as practical tips, what the female viewers who are watching here this video can learn from your research.
Absolutely. So, you know, Sylvia, as I have worked with women leaders around the world, that very often that I've heard that their challenges was caused by a lot of the subtle gender bias, and and also some of the issues of the society and then the cultural differences. And very often that when it kind of comes down to it, that there are things that we can change, but there are also things that we as women leaders can absolutely manage and change and control. So I would suggest I have 3 quick tips that I would like to recommend for women leaders. Number 1 is that create a command presence. Okay, so what I mean by that is that to really build a leadership presence here. Now, for example, that how you dress, how you show up, and your communication style, your body language, your gesture, and how you stand. This is all part of the impression, the perception that you create for other people. So to be mindful about how you show up, and for example, how you stand, right? No, don't bend over or look down, and to have a strong physical command presence, communicate that you're in control. Stand up straight, chin up, shoulders back, and speak confidently. And it's such an important, project an image that you are the leader. The second suggestion I have is understand and utilize hierarchy. Now, people in every culture, they can pick up very subtle cues that convey hierarchy. And if you can use this to your advantage and to enlist the help of your male colleagues to, for example, consistently communicate the status of your position, have them introduce you with your title. Make sure the title is stated clearly on your business card. And in hierarchical cultures, if somebody asks a question, sometimes they go directly to the man. And the most important thing is you make sure that you communicate ahead of time with your team that they would defer question back to you. This helps to continuously cement your position as the person in charge. Okay, so that's number 2. Number 3 is don't accidentally give in to gender stereotypes. So there are some gender stereotypes that we're aware of, and there are some that they're so subtle, so mundane that they're almost subconscious behaviors. But you know, those behaviors can undermine your authority the most. For example, resist the urge to bring coffee to your colleagues, or casually clear the dishes after a lunch meeting. Okay, you may think that you're being courteous or thoughtful or considerate, but to many people,
a lot of women are proud about, they love to nurture, they love to be good hosts, they love to have this kind of hosting a good space for their team, and suddenly the boss turns to the coffee making, setting up a nice space kind of thing.
That's right, absolutely. Now you have the best intention, but you know, perception is reality. And many people from other cultures, they watch these behaviors, and then their perception is that you're telling them, I'm not actually the leader, I'm an assistant. So those are some of the tips that I like to put it out there. And as a reminder that from working with thousands of women leaders around the world, and those are some of the things that we can control. And in terms of how to shape that perception and then really strengthen your leadership presence.
And also balance with my female clients. I sometimes hear pushback, women saying, I want to be authentic. I just want to be myself. And that's such a big question. We could have another interview about what does it even mean to be just ourselves, right? When are we being authentic? because we also have goals, and in a multicultural environment, perception is everything.
Yes.
So if I believe when I do X, because I privately, I love to be in the kitchen, I love to host parties, so I translate that behavior into the workplace in a culture where this would be perceived as an absolute no-no for a leader, I need to be conscious and aware of that and make a conscious choice. What's important for me more in that moment, to show up as my private self where I love to be the wonderful party host, or to show up in that culture as a leader who demands presence and respect and trust by not fighting with what's expected of me. I think it's a dance, it's a constant dance.
Yes.
And awareness is the key, awareness about ourselves and
Yes.
awareness about the culture we are operating in, which brings me back to your wonderful AAA model.
Well said. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so you can honor your own face, and then by really pay attention, be mindful about how the perception is going to be.
Beautiful.
Well said.
So, beloved viewer, you find here under the interview on Maya Huchang's speaker page here inside the conference a link to her webpage where you find a free chapter of her book. Her book is launching here now in June, so you will already be able to order it or pre-order it on Amazon. And if you do that, please, this is a gift for all our wonderful speakers and authors, please leave a review about the book as well, because I know, being an author myself, this is food of our author's soul to read what you take from any book. Maya, thank you so much for this intense, wonderful introduction to your really complex philosophy, which is so needed. I want to give you the final words here. What would you like to share with our viewer as a final nugget to take from you with them?
Absolutely. First of all, I hope you enjoy the book, and then just remember that this concept of face is the universal concept. And if you can utilize this concept wisely, you'll be able to break down barriers, you can make good connections, and you can build authentic relationships across all human differences. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Maya. Thank you for your precious time and attention, beloved viewer. I hope to see you inside our Facebook group, our conference launch here from the Juicy Life Leader Conference, where every day I ask you, what are your 1, 2, 3 key nuggets, the golden insights you take from our expert here today, from Maya, and you are committed to implement into your life. I'm looking forward to see your questions. And as you know, in the Facebook group, our speakers, some of them show up sometimes live, they see what you are asking there. So please, let's network, let's bring this online conference into our real life, because saving face is so much easier when we have a real interaction and not just a short tweet where we exchange the most important things in our life in whatever amount of letters are nowadays allowed. So please, let's really reach out. And also Maya is on LinkedIn. If you have a personal connection you want to create or tell her anything, use social media. And again, thank you, Maya, for being here today. I'm so happy with everything you shared, because I believe what you gave us today is key to carry that into the evolution of us leaders, so that we become juicy life leaders, enjoying healthy relationships in all areas of our life. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sylvia.